Now, what I'm gonna break down in this video is my vocal chain from beginning to end. It does include third-party plugins, but if you wait until the end, there's gonna be a link in the description, and I'm gonna show you exactly how to get a sound like this with stock plugins as well. What's up, guys? This is Valentina with Bigger Creations, and today I'm gonna show you how to mix your lead vocals like a pro. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss future videos. Let's jump right into it. I'm gonna show you exactly how it goes. So first, I'm gonna show you the raw vocals, then I'm gonna show you my vocals with my vocal chain, which includes a combination of stock plugins and third-party plugins, mostly from Waves. And then I'm gonna show you how you can get a very, very similar sound with stock plugins. Okay, so here are the raw vocals.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle. Don't be frightened, cause I know that's what you came for. If you got feelings, then maybe you should say so.
And these are my vocals with my vocal chain that includes stock plugins and Waves plugins.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle. Don't be frightened, cause I know that's what you came for. If you got feelings, then maybe you should say so.
And this is how I mimicked my own vocal chain with only stock plugins inside of Logic. Listen.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle. Don't be frightened, cause I know that's what you came for. If you got feelings, then maybe you should say so.
Again, here's my vocal chain.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle. Don't be frightened, cause I know that's what you came for.
And stock.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle. Don't be frightened.
So really, really close. I mean, if you're listening on studio monitors or, really, really good headphones, you're going to notice slight differences. I feel like obviously some of these third-party plugins are just really, really good at compressing vocals in a way that, no other plugins do quite the same. So it's gonna sound a little bit different, but it is so freaking close. So I'll show you what it sounds like with the music. So here's my vocal chain.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle. Frightened, cause I know that's what you came for. If you got feelings, then maybe you should say. You think you're a star, honey. You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle.
Like, if I were to mix these, like one phrase one way and one phrase the other way, you probably wouldn't be able to tell much of a difference. So it is that close. So let me show you what I did with my vocal chain that includes both stock and third-party plugins. And if you want to get the stock version of this preset, there's a download link in the description. It's fully customizable. So the first thing I do to my vocals, I'm just going to turn off all these effects here, and I'm going to show you one by one what I did. So the first thing I did was some gain staging, and the way you find that is if you just go to Utility and then Gain. And the purpose of this is because once you start adding effects to your audio track, the audio track itself will start clipping. So you want to do whatever you can to compensate for the volume increase that the plugins are going to do to your audio track. So I've lowered it by -9.5 just to make sure that my vocals are not actually clipping when I start adding all this compression and all this stuff to it. And, I put my volume here at -11.4, but for the sake of showing you, let's put it back to 0.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle. Don't be frightened, cause I know that's what you came for.
Okay. The next thing I did here is I added an NLS channel, and this is just to add a little bit of analog saturation. It's really subtle, but I just love the quality that it brings to it.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle. Don't be.
And then we start with an EQ. Now what I've done here is I've taken out some frequencies, like all these lower frequencies, something here around the 3K range, and then I boosted a few of the high end, a little bit of the high end, just to get a little bit more brightness in the vocal. So this is before.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table.
After.
Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle. Don't be frontin', cause I know that's what you came for.
Now, when you're listening to the vocal itself, like, yeah, because we just listened to all of the frequencies and now we've taken some away, the volume has gone down a little bit, but don't worry because within the mix, it's just going to sit perfectly within the mix without interfering with all of these other frequencies. The next thing I did here is I added an R compressor by Waves, and these are my settings.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle.
And I'm going to put my volume back to 11.4 where I had put that.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle. Don't be frontin', cause I know that's what you came for. If you got feelings, then maybe you should say so.
So we've compressed it. I put a pretty quick attack because I want it to attack the vocals right away. A slower release, and then bumped a little bit of the gain to kind of compensate for some of the volume reduction that we've gotten so far. The next thing I did was I added a multipressor, and these are my settings.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle. Don't be frontin', cause I know that's what you came for. If you got feelings, then maybe you should say so.
So something that I did when I first started producing, when I was just learning things, is I thought that the multi-band compressor was just for mastering and not necessarily for one track. But when you use it for one single track, it actually is where it shines. You can compress different frequencies at a different intensity to get the sound you're looking for. So here, we're making sure that we're keeping the high frequencies compressed and in check since we've boosted a lot of those high frequencies.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle. Don't be frontin', cause I know that's what you came for. If you got feelings, then...
All right, the next thing I added here is a de-esser from Waves, and I've set it up to the highest frequency, and these are my settings.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle.
And this is just like a subtle de-esser. You'll notice I have another one later, but this is just, since we're compressing and boosting frequencies, just want to make sure I don't have anything like sticking out. Then one of my favorite plugins is the VOCALS compressor from Waves. And this is where the magic happens. You're going to see the volume spike quite a bit here. But you'll notice the key about this plugin is because we've done some preliminary compression and EQ before we got to this plugin, now this compressor doesn't have to work nearly as hard to get our vocal sounding really great. So this is what it sounds like.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle. Don't be frontin', cause I know that's what you came for. If you got feelings, then maybe you should say so.
Then I'm going to add another de-esser. I've set it up to be at the 6,000 hertz range with a negative 7.3 threshold.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle. Don't be frontin', cause I know that's what you came for.
Just nice and clean. And then the last thing I add on the main vocal chain is some reverb. And this is one of my favorite reverb plugins. I have a separate video where I talk about how to come up with the right settings based off of the song you're singing to get your vocals to sound really good. In this case, these are the settings that I've done. Some important things, if you want to see more in detail, check out that video. The link's going to be in the description. But high level, the main thing is that you've set up, the proper reverb time so that it's not interfering with all of your phrases. And then also EQing your reverb is huge. You really only want the reverb to be where the voice should be sitting, not in all these low and super, super high frequencies, just to keep things a little bit neat. So this is what it sounds like before.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like...
And after.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle. Don't be frontin', cause I know that's what you came for. If you got feelings, then maybe you should say so.
So that just gives us a little bit of a space to work with. So now when you listen to the vocal, it sounds less unnatural and more natural. Basically, before we added all of these,
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table.
and after.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle.
So we're not done yet, but this is where all the hard work happened, right? We've got all the compression in place, we've got the EQs, we've got the frequencies that we want to be heard. There's just a few other audio sweetening things that I like to do. So the first thing I do here is I create a bus, and this is where I'm gonna make my parallel compression. So what I've done here is I've added a CLA compressor, which is one of my favorite compressors that Waves offers. Again, in the stock version that I'm going to show you later, I do this with stock plugins to get a very similar sound, so stick around. So these are my settings for my compressor, and then on top of that, I also add a limiter, and these are my settings for the limiter. And with those in place, basically, if I'm only playing, so let's find the bus here. So this is my parallel compression right here. Now, basically what I've done is I've heavily compressed what I've put into this bus. So basically a copy of this vocal with this vocal chain is going to be extra compressed. And the purpose of that is it adds a little bit more of that mid-range that I want to boost a little bit. And so what I do is I bus it out, put it all the way up in volume here in the bus as far as how much I'm sending over. And then here in the faders, I go to that bus and I adjust it. So for example, right now I have it at around -27, but I'm gonna exaggerate it and you guys can listen to what it sounds like.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle. Don't be frightened, cause I know that's what you came for.
So what I'm doing here is it's a little bit more of that mid-range vocal, and I'm just adding that to it. So I'm gonna put it down here to like -27, and you kind of just do this to taste. I just like to play the vocal, and I'm gonna play it here as well. So we've got the vocal.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle. Don't be frightened, cause I know that's what you came for. If you got feelings, then maybe you should say so.
Okay, so there's the parallel compression. The next bus that I add here is actually a trick that I learned from another producer that makes YouTube videos. His name is Devon Terrell. His channel is Help Me Devon, and he has a ton of great tutorials and really explains how things work really well. He's a very, very talented engineer. So this is a trick that I learned from him. And basically you're just adding another bus where you're only, so kind of like the parallel compression where it was like more of that mid-range, like really compressed vocal that we're adding in. In this case, we're adding strictly just heavily compressed high end of the vocal, just to make it a little bit brighter and have it pop in the mix a little bit better. So what I've done here is I've added a channel EQ, and basically I've removed all of the lower frequencies and just boosted these above 10K. Then I added a de-esser at about 5500 and an R compressor and some delay. And I love this plugin because it just does the math for you. But these are my settings. And basically as I add that in here, so I'm gonna play that by itself without the vocal, the main vocal.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table.
So it's this really, really high end and compressed portion of the vocal. And what I'm doing here with this fader is adding that to play in conjunction with my main vocal chain. So I've got my main vocal chain playing, my parallel compression, and then some of that high frequency.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle. Don't be frightened, cause I know that's what you came for. If you got feelings, then maybe you should say so.
The last bus that I add here is just a doubler, and this is just to make the main vocals a little bit thicker, so it sounds like there's a little bit more going on. And so these are the doubler settings that I added. And again, you just add it to taste here in the fader. So this is what it sounds like by itself.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table.
Kind of this chorusy effect, doubled. But then when I add everything, and I add just a little bit of that.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle. Don't be frightened, cause I know that's what you came for. If you got feelings, then maybe you should say so.
So there you have it, guys. That is my vocal chain. And now if we play it all together with the mix.
You ain't even bringing nothing to the table. Come to scoop me up, you scoop me like a ladle. Don't be frightened, cause I know that's what you came for. If you got feelings, then maybe you should say so. You think you're a star.
Now, here is the awesome part, guys. I showed you at the beginning how I accomplished a very, very close to this sound with only stock plugins. And that's what I've done here on this track. So if you want to do this and you don't have wave plugins, you just want to use stock plugins, this is the closest I was able to get to it, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So there's a link in the description for you to download the stock lead vocal preset I've created. The best thing about it is it's fully customizable. Literally, you can go in here and change all of the settings to your liking. And I've included not just the main part, but also these bust effect chains so that you can easily just go into your presets folder, drop it in, and then tweak it however you want. Spend less time freaking out and trying to make what you can with stock plugins and do it the easy way. Here's a preset. Obviously, like I said, there are some subtle differences. You can tell the quality of these third-party plugins, especially Waves. I mean, they've been around since like forever. So I'll also put a link in the description to all of these Waves plugins in case you're interested in going that route. But if you're tight on money and don't want to invest in those plugins just yet, there's a way to still get high quality vocals in your mixes with the stock vocal preset that I've created. So go down to that link in the description, download it, let me know how you feel about it in the comments. I hope this is gonna take your productions to the next level. So there you have it, guys. That's how you can get pro sounding vocals in your mixes with only stock plugins. Anyways, I hope this was helpful. If you like this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed if you want to see more videos like this. And as always, if you ever have any questions or want to see more content, check me out on Instagram. Keep making beats.